All right, it looks like it's slowed down just a little bit, so I think we're okay to go ahead and get started. So again, welcome and good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Retirement Basics What You Should Know webinar this evening. Just in case you missed it earlier, this format is going to be a webinar. That means that you will not be able to use the chat feature. However, you will be able to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we encourage you to do so. We have two of our most experienced financial advisors with us this evening to share their knowledge with you, Richard Ramos and Jumana Gatos Dow. Both of them are going to, again, share their knowledge with you and take those questions. To enter your questions, locate the Q&A feature at the top of your bar, at the top of your window there. It's a little bubble and it says Q&A feature. Right there, you'll be able to drop in your questions and our advisors will answer them as they are submitted. So with that, I am going to hand over our presentation this evening to our first presenter, Richard Ramos.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for showing up. Appreciate it so much. And I'm excited about this, able to help the other community. It seems like I'm not able to help enough people throughout the day. We get really busy, and there's a lot of demand out there for especially this topic, retirement. You know, when we do financial planning, it's normally for some goal, be it purchasing a home or sending a child to higher education. But the number one is retirement. I think that's everyone's on that trajectory. So this will be good. And again, if you have any questions, Jumana will be answering those as I'm speaking here. Okay, so let's jump right in there. So today, the agenda, we're going to be talking about the basics of retirement planning, where to start, income and expenses, Social Security, and that should be right around the half point. We're going to go to about 6:30 today. And then from there, we'll finish off with how much money you need, achieving retirement planning success, and are you ready? Okay, so here we go. The basics of retirement planning. We're going to keep this conversation to the basics, because retirement planning can get pretty intricate. We can get into the weeds and with a lot of moving numbers and things to think about, and ideas and emotions and concerns. But we're going to just stick to the basics here, pretty much the outline of retirement planning. So what are things to consider when retirement planning? Where are you going to save? That's the number one thing we're going to need to do as we're planning, is we need to save. If there's not much of a savings, then there's not much of a planning we can do. So we want to save in a vehicle that lends to your discipline, if you will. More than likely, an employer plan, such as a 401k, 457, 403b. If your employer provides one, that's great. I prefer those versus an individual retirement account, just because it helps with it helps with the ease of discipline. You don't see it; it's coming before it gets saved from your paycheck before it hits your bank account. It's a lot easier to stay on track with that. So, especially if your employers are offering a match, even more of a reason. Okay, so but if they don't offer some type of retirement vehicle, IRAs and Roth IRAs, those are just as good. You're just not going to get a match with those, and you're going to have to be a little bit more disciplined on those, because you have to make the effort to save the money in those vehicles. So from there, once you save the money into your retirement plan, we still need to invest it into something. First step is putting the money in there. The second step is investing it. Because putting the money in there, more than likely, is just going to end up in a money market type of vehicle, which is going to grow it's not going to keep up with inflation. I've noticed now with the vast majority of employer plans, they default to a target date type of fund. That's the type of an investment that's pretty much in line with age 65. So unless you go in there and change the investments, by default, it's going to be allocated into something that's in line to retirement at age 65. So in other words, as you're getting closer to age 65, it's becoming the investment a little bit more conservative because you're getting closer to the day of needing it. But you can actually go, and sometimes it's worth going in there and customizing the allocation to something more in line with your personal risk tolerance and time horizon, because not everybody wants to retire at 65. So also part of the things to consider when planning is assumptions. We need to make assumptions of how the things are going to look like at retirement point, such as what is cost of living going to be at that point? You know, what's the inflation rate we're going to project into our assumptions? Historically, inflation has been 3% a year. In other words, things are more expensive at 3% annually. But some sentiments are that's it's going to be higher. Some sentiments are no, that's about average, or we want to go lower. So there was something to consider about what assumptions you're going to use. Also, the assumption of Social Security, is it going to be there? How much is going to be there? What's the age going to be for full retirement age of Social Security? Other assumptions to take in consideration for retirement planning. Longevity, that's an important one. Is there longevity in your within your family? What did mom and dad? How old were they when they passed away? Your uncles and aunts. How's your health? How's your lifestyle? To what age do we want to plan? Because we need to have enough capital to provide for a retirement up to our time horizon date. Typically, when I do financial plans, when I'm working with clients, I plan to age 95. And most of my clients, they chuckle and laugh and they say, well, that's not going to be me. And it's, well, more than likely not. The statistics are mid 80s, but I'd rather overplan than underplan because I do have clients in their 90s. And if we never make it to age 95, my frame of thought is, well, you just left a little bit more for your heirs. That's the end result. With some clients, if they insist because of their longevity within their family or personal health, we'll tone it down to age 90. That's still, I think, reasonable. I don't feel personally comfortable planning to anything below 85 because statistics are, especially with modern innovation with medicine, we'll make it to somewhere 85 or beyond that. Other things to consider is where are we going to retire at? Is it going to be in Bakersfield? Is it going to be in California? Is it going to be in the United States? That's going to be a big factor with cost of living. How much are we going to need to project in there? And also, what type of lifestyle are we thinking about for retirement? How much are we going to travel? Are we going to stay home? We're going to travel within the states only. So things to consider about what type of lifestyle, what type of activity, because this later on is going to we're going to have to factor this stuff into our planning here. From there, we're going to keep it simple. I like to think of retirement planning or any type of financial planning like a diet. If it's simple, it works. The more complicated we make it, the less we're going to adhere to it and stick to it, and we're just going to get discouraged. So we're going to keep it simple. We want to start saving as much as we can and starting as soon as you can. Wherever we are at the point in our journey here, it's like the old adage is, it's never too late. We need to start saving, and we need to save as much as we can. And we're going to talk a little bit about we mentioned where we're going to save at earlier. It's primarily retirement accounts. That way, it's you're not tempted to get into it for other reasons, aside for retirement. That's the primary. If we exhaust those accounts, there is other accounts that we could save into, but those we start off with retirement accounts, again, 401ks and IRAs. From there, we have to be confident about our plan. So if we're not going to get confident, if we don't start rolling up our sleeves, sharpening the pencils, and actually taking notes of what this is going to look like, expenses. We have here, back in 2023, there was a surveying of savers within retirement plans of how well they felt, if they were on their trajectory to retirement, on their plan, and the numbers don't look well. If we look here at the not at all confident, it's 1/3. That's a pretty high number. Someone confident is half. So, and I think that is primarily because people really haven't put their plan under a microscope. I would venture to say that many of those they already retire or on the track to retire, but the reason they don't feel confident is because they haven't unpacked where they're at and if they're on track or not. And sometimes it's just a minor tweak that needs to be done to get somebody on track. Sometimes it's just a minor mind shift of how retirement is going to look like. Maybe downsizing from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom is okay with someone, and that makes everything okay, put somebody on track. So again, planning is important, is especially with the confidence. Again, just like a diet, the more confident you are of the plan, the more you're going to adhere to it, stick to it, and it's going to be of top of mind. So that's a very important aspect of planning. Okay, 2 ways to apply the savings. Financial professionals recommend that 75 to 80%. So we need to replace Social Security. It's going to be there. I'm confident it's going to be there. Now they might move the age for me, but for those who are closer to retirement, I'm pretty confident. That I know I get a lot of clients that are concerned about its stability, but nevertheless, even its presence, it's not going to cover for 100% of retirement. It's going to be about 1/3. 40%, somewhere between 30 to 40% is what Social Security is going to cover to maintain the same lifestyle, the same customs that you have, to eat at the same restaurants, travel at the same places you're accustomed to maintain that same lifestyle. We can count on Social Security replacing about 1/3 of your needs, of your expenses. So if we're backing into it, how much are we going to need? Now we can do a financial analysis of all the expenses you're gonna have, or if you just want to use a quick back of the napkin calculation, how much are you earning right now annually? And about somewhere between 70 and 80% is what you're gonna need in retirement to maintain the same lifestyle on that. And then from that 70 to 80%, Social Security is going to cover about 1/3 of that. Let's just say 35% of that. And that's assuming Social Security at full retirement age, not at the early age. We're going to talk a little bit about early retirement and late retirement claim in Social Security. So that's a good rule of thumb that you can use. Again, as we get closer to retirement and at the cusp of retirement, we want to go a little dive deeper into those rule of thumb numbers of the 70 to 80%. And actually do some cash flow analysis into retirement. But as we're working on retirement, that's kind of a number you could keep at the top of mind of how much are we going to need. We're going to need enough saved to replace 70 to 80% of your last year's income. So if your last year of earned income is 100,000, for example, just to keep the numbers easy, we're going to need about 80,000, 75,000, at minimally 70,000 to maintain the same lifestyle, and then 1/3 of that is going to be covered by Social Security. Why not 100%? Because you're no longer saving for retirement. You no longer have the wear and tear of expenses of driving to work and eating out at lunch, and the FICA tax that you have from your payroll. So a lot of that gets, since you're not going to have it, you don't need 100%. The 70 to 80% will do the job. Now, we also got to be realistic. If your ideal retirement is traveling the world every other year, then we're going to need more closer to the 80, 85%. if it's a very simple ideal of I just want to hang out in Bakersfield and participate with my grandkids, and closer to the 70-75% might do the job. Again, we sharpen our pencils as we get on the cusp of retirement on that. Okay, where to start? You want to do some brainstorming. Where are you gonna? How's this gonna look like? Where are you gonna live? What are you gonna do? You gotta take yourself there. The imagination of how this is gonna look like. That way, it's easier to plan and financially. How much money do you have at the moment, and how much time do you have at the moment to gather more assets, and what's healthcare going to look like? What's your health now? Is it on the trajectory to getting better or worse? So we need a plan for all this. So we need to just brainstorm a bunch of expected possible expenses in retirement. So I like to pretty much divide retirement into 3 buckets. The first phase, the second phase, and the third phase. That'll help you narrow down what are the possible, what's retirement going to look like in the first phase between 65 and 75, if indeed you retire at 65. In other words, the first 10 years of retirement, the second 10 years of retirement, and then the last 10, 50, or whatever retirement looks like towards the end. The go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. The first phase is going to be the go-go years. You still have enough health. There's a lot of stuff you want to do on the bucket list. You're going to spend more money at that point, and you're going to have more activity. So you want to think about that stuff. The second phase, the slow go, you get a lot of stuff out of the system. You've been there, done that. You're a little older now. So the expenses might go down, and you want to think about what possible expenses will be there. And pretty much the no-go years, the final phase is you're at home now, taking primarily tending to health and trying to stay as healthy as possible. And traveling is not as convenient and easy at that point. Okay, a budget is very important for retirement. A budget is very important pre-retirement, and it's just as important in retirement. We're going to need a spending plan. We're going to need to identify where it flows, the cash flows coming in and going out. We're going to need to keep our finger on the pulse to know where we can cut spending and splurge a little bit more. What's more of importance and of value for us. This is going to help with the financial goals. If we're not going to budget, it's going to retirement. It's going to be it's not going to be as well as it can be, as far as having peace of mind with it, as far as feeling good about it, and feeling confident and competent, like the earlier slide on that. So budgeting, it's not fun. I don't like doing it personally, but I do it, and it's probably the least excited part when I'm doing financial planning with clients is the budget part, but it needs to be done on that. The budget is going to give you control of retirement. It's going to help you stay organized. It's going to allow you to recognize opportunities of where you can save more, of where you can spend more. On that. It's going to free up time so you can enjoy retirement, free up time for when you're doing your taxes and your estate planning, and also with just organizing yourself with finances. And hopefully with the discipline, it's going to allow for more money if we're wise about the budgeting of where we want to lean into and where we want to lean out from. In other words, where can we cut money so we can spend more in other areas? And if leaving a legacy is of importance, then we can factor that in within the budget as well. But without the budget, That's going to be a roll of the dice of if there's going to be anything there for legacy, if it is of importance. Okay, income and expenses. There's two types of expenses. There's fixed and the variables. The fixed is going to be something that's continuous. The mortgage, the water bills, the utilities, in other words, the insurance. So if the bill is constant every month or every quarter, the amount, then that's considered fixed. The variables are going to be more, might be somewhat discretionary. It might be something like healthcare, where if your health is not as optimal as it should be or as it could be, then that can vary as far as how often we're visiting the doctor. So we want to categorize on fixed expenses and variable expenses on that. Some examples of fixed expenses, I went over some earlier. Some examples of these are variable expenses. These are examples of fixed expenses, but examples of variable expenses. Again, clothing, personal maintenance. I categorize the essentials, the toiletry stuff as fixed. You're gonna need that, but some of this other stuff can be luxurious, and that could be more of the variable. So you want to categorize that. So when you're doing the budget, you're going to budget for the fixed and the variables, and we know the fixed are pretty much going to be the essentials. And many of the variables are essentials as well, but many of them are going to be discretionary on that. Okay, so we want to categorize income as well, not only the spending, but also the income. What's going to be fixed and what's going to vary. So is your Social Security or pensions or side gigs. Those are fixed on that. And if you have some other income that's variable, that maybe like you're expecting inherit some money, we want to categorize that separate when we're doing financial planning. So we have the income minus the expenses. The moment of truth, are we net positive or negative? We really want to we don't want to hide from that. We really want to expose that. That way we know if what we're working with. If we're in the negative, then we have to address that before we start really rolling up our sleeves and planning more in depth on that. Same thing with assets and liabilities. We want to take inventory of our assets. Assets is pretty much of anything of value that appreciates. Right here in this slide, we have cars and trucks and boats as assets. Me personally, when I'm doing planning, I don't categorize cars because they depreciate. But the some of the boats, or if they're classic cars, collectors, then we can consider those. The furnishings, no, but the antiques and some of the jewelries, those I do categorize as assets. We want to take inventory of that, and we also want to take inventory of our liabilities. If we have a mortgage still to pay off, any other type of debt we have, any taxes that are back due, not future taxes, just back due taxes. Those are liabilities on the balance sheet. Major unpaid bills as well, not future overhead, just unpaid bills, and anything other that it's a liability. We want to take inventory of that, and we wanted, once again, another moment of truth. Assets minus liability equals net worth. We want to see this net worth trend up as you're getting closer to retirement, preferably 10% plus every year. That's a key performance indicator. If your net worth is trending down, we have some other issues we got to address. If it's just flatline, we also need to address that as well. We want to see a trend up as we're getting closer to retirement. Now, once in retirement, it's okay if it trends down, but not at 10%. It can trend down or flatline, but we'll have to. That takes a little bit more in-depth planning to see what's acceptable or not with that. So we need to calculate your net worth. This is going to allow you to do better financial planning, allow you to understand if you need life insurance, if it's of importance, when you're doing your estate planning, how that's going to look like. Understanding your finances, your capital, your liabilities is going to help with that. And also with applying for any other loans, to consolidate loans, we need to be aware of what we're going to qualify or not. At this point, I feel like I sped through the first half of the presentation. There's quite a bit of planning slides here, but within an hour. If you feel like you want to go more in depth with this, please keep asking questions. We're going to answer every question that we get, and you could get a hold of us as well. But at this point, I'm going to pass the baton over to Jumana to take over the second half of the presentation, starting with Social Security.
Thank you, Richard. Just a reminder for everyone that the Q&A is open, so if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in there. Richard covered a lot in there. Some really important key points to think about when you're starting to plan for retirement. I'm going to move into the tail end of this and follow up with Social Security, and because that is going to be a part of your retirement plan. So it's definitely
Jumana, it looks like you actually got muted. Can you unmute on your end?
There we go. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we will go ahead and move forward with Social Security. Again, if you guys have questions, pop them in the Q&A. Richard, feel free to stop me if we have a question, and we can go ahead and answer it. But another key part of retirement planning is Social Security. So you can begin receiving Social Security when you are 62. The maximum age to start taking your Social Security benefits is 70. There's no benefit to you waiting longer than 70, but your benefit amount will differ based on your full retirement age, FRA. That's a key age to keep in mind when we're planning for retirement. This is based on the year of your birth. So for example, if you were born in 1948, your full retirement age is 66, and that's when you will receive 100% of your benefit. For someone born in 1960 or later, probably many of us on the video chat today, our full retirement age is 67. And keeping our fingers crossed, like Richard said, that doesn't go up for us that are still in here. But let's see how starting to receive your Social Security affects receiving your Social Security early affects the amount that you will receive. Let's see if this is going to move up here. There we go. Starting your benefits early, as early as 62 or anytime before your full retirement age, will give you a 20 to 30% reduction based on your year of birth. For example, let's say you were born in 1950 and you qualify for a benefit of $1,000 at age 66, which is your full retirement age. But if you choose to start taking your Social Security at 62, you'll receive only about $750, which is about a 25% reduction. In this example, if you waited until you were 63, your monthly benefit would be reduced by about 20%. So at 64, the reduction factor drops about a little over 13%. And at age 65, it's only 6.6% or so. So for those who need the income right away, taking benefits is appealing, of course, but just keep in mind that the benefits are permanently reduced. It does not jump up the amount once you receive your full retirement age. All right, if you wait until your full retirement age to receive your Social Security, your full amount will be increased. if you wait until after your full retirement age, can't talk today, your benefit amount will be increased. So for someone born in 1943 or later, his or her benefit will be increased by about 8% for each full year that they delay receiving the retirement. So the longer you wait, the higher your benefit. Remember that if you work past your full retirement age, more earnings are added to your Social Security. And as a result, if your lifetime Social Security earnings are higher, your benefit may be higher, in addition to the delay factor. So another question that typically comes up, will your benefits be subject to federal income tax? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. Your Social Security benefit will be subject to federal income tax if your combined income is over a certain limit. Your combined income is defined by Social Security as your adjusted gross income plus any non-taxable interest plus half of your Social Security benefits. So you can see in the example that a single person with a combined income of $30,000 would have a 50% of their benefits taxed. And a couple that files jointly with a combined income of $40,000 would also have 50% of their benefits taxed. Keep in mind that total income means any money from all sources, so employment, dividends, capital gains, and so on. All right, you can receive Social Security benefits while you're working. However, there is a limit to the amount that you can earn before your benefit is reduced. For 2025, that limit is $23,400. It is adjusted annually to reflect inflation, so it does go up slightly each year. This limit applies only up until your full retirement age. That's when it actually goes away entirely. So let's take a look at an example. Assume a person is 62 and starting to receive benefits, and their full retirement age is 66. They earn $23,880 per year. In 2025, his or her annual benefit would be reduced $1 for every 2 of their earnings that are over the limit. So the earnings of 480 were over the limit. So that would result in a reduction of $240, which is the 480 divided by 2. So $240 of their benefit would be taxed. There's a much higher limit for the year in which you reach your full retirement age. Also, the reduction in that year is $1 for every 3 of your earnings. Obviously, the earnings limit is a factor to consider when you're deciding whether to start taking your Social Security at 62 or your full retirement age. The good news is that earnings limit no longer applies after your full retirement age. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to Social Security. And I'm sure you agree that Social Security is typically near the top of the list when you're starting to prepare for retirement. There is some helpful information for you. So if you visit www.ssa.gov, which is the Social Security website, that's the site that you can go on and review your income statement, how much you've earned, and what your potential benefit is for your Social Security. All right. Oopsie, let's see here. All right, so when you're ready to apply for Social Security, you should have some of the following items with you. Keep in mind, don't delay filing your Social Security because the Social Security Administration can still help you even if you don't have all these documents. They can help answer your questions and kind of give you a good idea of where you're going to be at, how much you're going to receive, and such. So you should always apply for benefits about 4 months prior to actually wanting your benefit to begin. So if you wanted your benefit to start in April, you should probably start applying for your Social Security in January. All right, so the age-old question, how much money will I need? As Richard spoke about earlier, you're going to need to replace about 75 to 80% of your current income with your savings. And most financial experts suggest that you're going to need 75 to 90% of your current annual income to live comfortably in retirement. Now, how much does Social Security contribute? Well, for the average person, again, like Richard said earlier, Social Security is only meant to replace about 30 to 40% of your wages that you earn before retirement. So be sure to visit the Social Security website, at www.ssa.gov, and they have calculators on there for you that can help you estimate not only how much you're going to get in your Social Security, but how much you'll need in retirement to live comfortably. Of the various sources of income, again, Social Security is going to replace about 37% of your income on average. So we should, when we do our planning, financial advisors like Richard and I use that calculation to determine, okay, how much is this person going to need from all sources? And so this is a really good chart that shows where all of your money should be coming from in retirement, so that way you can live comfortably. Right, and we have to say we can't ignore inflation. We all know that things are not getting any cheaper, especially over the past few years. Inflation has kind of gone out of control. So this is a really nice chart that shows you the perspective of rising living costs over time. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising, and your purchasing power of that money is falling. Unfortunately, in retirement, you'll probably be living on a fixed income. However, the cost of those basic essentials that you need is going to continue to go up. And then typically, we use a calculation of inflation about 3% per year. The loss of the dollar's buying power over time can really have an adverse effect on the growth of your retirement account. So it's important to keep a proper mix of investments to make sure we can offset that inflation. Also, make sure you take into account inflation when you're looking at your expenses. When we do, I typically use the analogy of if you have $100,000 in retirement savings today and it's in an account and that makes you feel good, remember that just because if you choose not to invest that money, although your money is still there, that $100,000 is not going to buy you the same amount of stuff in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years that it is today. So it's important to make sure you have the right investment mix. Forward. Oh boy. Screen being finicky on screen here. All right. Most Americans are living longer and healthier lives. So you need to plan to spend at least 15 to 20 years in retirement. As Richard mentioned earlier, the average life expectancy of a male is 82, and the average life expectancy of a female is 85. So when we do our retirement planning, we typically plan out to 10 years past that, which puts you to about 92 and 95 respectively. I like to say, let's err on the side of caution and say that you live. And I think Richard said it earlier too, that, let's have some extra money for you to give away rather than be short the money and not know where it's going to come from. All right, you also need to plan for those medical expenses. Medical cost inflation can really quickly go through your retirement savings. Although many people end up having their houses paid in retirement, we typically like to plan for the amount that you use to pay for, you normally paid for your mortgage every month, that's going to be replaced by your medical costs. Really important to think about your health coverage and your healthcare coverage. And of course, something that kind of goes hand in hand with talking about Social Security is Medicare. Medicare eligibility begins on the first day of the month that you turn 65 years old. If you're already receiving Social Security benefits before you turn 65, you should automatically receive your Medicare identification card in the mail before your 65th birthday. However, if you're not collecting Social Security benefits before you turn 65, you should enroll for Medicare about 3 months before you turn 65. So same thing, if you turn 65 in April of the year, you want to make sure you apply for Medicare by February, by January, February of that same year. Just because you're eligible for Medicare doesn't mean you should enroll and pay the premiums right away. We have many members, many clients that are still working in their 60s. And if you are still working and your employer's plan offers the right coverage and adequate coverage for you, you can save money by continuing to use your employer coverage until you actually retire from working. An extremely important point about Medicare is that you have to pay close attention to the application deadlines and the rules for applying for the benefits. If you enroll late or drop out and then have to re-enroll again, you may end up paying a higher premium for the same benefit. All right, let's talk a little bit about what makes up your Medicare coverage. So there's 4 parts. Part A helps cover your inpatient hospital care, your inpatient rehabilitation facilities, your inpatient stays in skilled nursing facilities as well. It also covers hospice care and some home health care services. You can choose the hospitals and the facilities that you want to use. Part B is your medical insurance, and that covers your medically necessary services like your doctor's visits, your outpatient care, and some of your preventative services. Just like Part A, same thing, you pick your doctors and you pick your other providers. Now, Part C is the Medicare Advantage Plan, and these involve private insurance companies and HMOs or PPOs that provide the hospital and medical insurance under Parts A and B. In most of these plans, you need to use the plan's doctors, hospitals, and other providers that are in that network, or else you end up paying more. And then Part D is your prescription drug coverage. If you want this coverage, you can choose to join a Medicare prescription drug plan from a private company approved by Medicare. And most of the Medicare Advantage plans that we talked about in Part Z typically include some kind of Part D or drug coverage in their plans. You might also want to think about a Medigap policy, which covers the amount that Medicare doesn't end up paying. These policies are offered by private insurers that are not affiliated with Medicare, and the costs can vary depending on the level of coverage that you want. All right, most people don't pay a premium for Part A because they have 40 or more quarters of Medicare covered employment. That kind of ties into your Social Security. The premium is $285 per month if you or your spouse worked 30 to 39 quarters. So if you had less than the 40, and $518 per month if you worked less than 30 quarters. Part B's premium ranges from $185 to $628 to $29 per month, depending on your adjusted gross income on your tax return. For Part A, the hospitalization portion, the 2025 deductible is $1,675 for each hospital stay, anywhere from 1 to 60 days. There are also daily co-payment amounts for stays that are longer than 60 days. In a skilled nursing facility, the co-payment is $209.50 per day for days 21 through 100, each benefit period. Under the Part B plan, the annual deductible is $257, after you reach the deductible, you generally pay 20% of the Medicare approved amount for services. Now, before we leave Medicare, I want to remind you all that paying close attention to the deadlines for Medicare, again, is super important because there are penalties for enrolling late, and you might have the possibility of paying an additional 10% for your premiums if you miss the deadlines. Again, for more information on Medicare, you can visit www.medicare.gov. All right, so a Medigap policy, again, is health insurance that's sold by private insurance company to fill the gap that original Medicare may not cover completely. Medigap policies help pay some of the healthcare costs that original Medicare doesn't cover. And if you are in the original Medicare plan and have a Medigap policy, then Medicare and your Medigap policy will pay both their shares of the covered healthcare costs. Insurance companies can only sell you a standardized Medigap policy, and these policies must have specific benefits so you can compare them pretty easily. Again, there's some resources on the slide there to help with information on some of those Medigap coverages and sources. All right. Transitioning over to long-term care, the average cost of a nursing home nationally is $100,375. The cost of care varies from state to state. However, if you have to go into some type of long-term care facility, Medicare does not pay for some of these, if not the majority of these services. Most people over the age of 65 will end up in some type of long-term facility or require some type of long-term care services. And a lot of people think that Medicare and private health insurance cover them, but they don't. So it's really important to talk to someone like a financial professional like Richard or myself to discuss what some of those long-term care costs for and how you can help save for them. Here. All right, let's talk about how you can achieve retirement planning success. So we like to break it down into 5 steps. Richard talked earlier about choosing your savings vehicle, whether it's your employer-sponsored plan, which is your best bet if you have an employer that has a 401k, 403b, 457, whatever those numbers are. If they have it, contribute to it, especially if they're offering a match, because then you're leaving free money on the table by not contributing. Start as early as you can, which means if you haven't started already, today's the perfect day to start. 3, increase your savings rate whenever you can. So as you receive raises or as you get a bonus, or if your retirement plan provider offers you the option to do it as a percentage base versus a flat dollar figure, use the percentage base. That way, as you your paychecks are higher, you'll put more away, and that way it's just automatic for you. 4, of course, don't forget about those retirement expenses like healthcare. Healthcare is going to be a really big part of your expenses and will likely replace your mortgage or housing costs in retirement. And lastly, seek professional advice. And it says if you need it. I almost want to scratch that out, because even if you don't think you need it, it's always a good idea to talk to a financial professional just to make sure you're on the right track, or potentially give you some additional ideas of how you can help save more or save more efficiently. Okay. So just a reminder, ideally at age 70, at least 50% of your expenses should be covered by Social Security, pensions, and annuities. Hopefully you don't have any debt, but again, or at least any mortgage debt, but that will likely be replaced by your health care costs. And trying to limit your debts to under 25% of your income is ideal. All right, so let's take a look at a timeline. At age 50, you can begin making what we call catch-up contributions. That allows you to put away extra money into your retirement vehicles like your 401k or your IRA. 59 and a half is the age at which you no longer have to pay a penalty to take money out of a retirement account like a 401k or an IRA. At age 62, that's the minimum age that you can begin to take Social Security. However, keep in mind you do take a reduced amount by starting before your full retirement age, which is right now should be 67 for most of you. At age 65, you become eligible for Medicare, but as a reminder, you should be applying 3 months before you turn 65. And your full retirement age for anyone born after 1960 is 67. At age 73, I want to even put in there age 70 is the maximum age for you to start taking your Social Security. There's no benefit to you waiting longer than 70. And then of course, 73, you can start taking or you have to start taking minimum withdrawals, what we call required minimum distributions or RMD from your retirement accounts, or you'll be charged a tax penalty. Right, so some helpful resources again for you if you have any questions. Of course, there's the Q&A chat, so if you've got questions, feel free to pop them in there. And I do see that there's a question from Emily. I think I missed it earlier, but we'll get it at the end there. Oh, I think we are at the end. Do you want to do your part, Emily, or do you want us to answer the questions first?
You know what? Thank you, Jumana. I think Richard actually did answer both of the questions that came in.
My speakers are working. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I can't hear you, so I'm sorry. I don't know where my speakers went.
That's okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jumana and Richard, for their presentation. Lots of good information was shared there. As they both mentioned, keep dropping those questions in the chat if you think of anything. I just want to share one additional resource with you that Valley Strong is able to offer, and that is the Silver product. As a Valley Strong member, this is a product that you have access to that you can go right onto our website, valleystrong.com/silver. It is a tool that can help you plan for retirement. There's different things on there that can help you depending on what you're looking for exactly, but there's a retirement calculator where you can check your retirement score, how you're doing, how long it predicts that you are saved up until, what age. So lots of tools and resources can be found there. So again, just check that out at www.valleystrong.com/silver. And with that, I'm going to thank Jumana and Richard one more time for being our experts of the evening. We appreciate you so much and everything that you shared.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily, for hosting. Appreciate it so much.
Of course. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I will go ahead and stay on the line for just another 2 minutes to make sure that nothing else comes through. If not, again, thank you to all of our attendees this evening, and you are more than welcome to drop off the call or drop a question in. Thank you and have a good evening.